I promise not to preach. There we go. I had my Bible lesson stuff pulled up there. See if this thing will load. I don't think we're on super high speed. There we go.
Do you know what I saw the other night?
Huh?
Lynn and I were outside. I saw the other night. I saw a stream of lights, way higher than what a plane could get. And what it was, we Googled it. It's the Starlink Elon Musk satellites, and you can see them like every so often.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they were just in a line.
Huh?
It's like 30 or 40 of them.
I think I've seen that.
It's,
Like what's that dot scale?
Yeah, exactly.
I have seen
All right.
and then they kind of disappear.
So, so y'all want to sit in here? You remember, I'm hard of hearing. If you have a question, you're going to have to yell.
Don't answer it for them back there. They obviously don't want up close and personal.
Yeah, I have to read lips. So y'all welcome to come sit with us.
And you got to be able to hear that answer for that $100,000 gift card too.
That's right. That's right. So yeah. Okay. All right. So how many of y'all in here had seen 6% CDs before? 6% CDs before.
Been a while, hasn't it?
Been a while. Yeah. How many of y'all seen 10% CDs? Y'all can raise your hand if you want to. I have, and I've had one. All right. So when my mom started in the real estate business, she had to deal with 17% interest on a house, right? And so some of y'all are in the business and seeing these rates for the first time. How many of y'all seeing these rates for the first time?
I think I am. I've been here 26 years, but
Yeah.
I don't remember. That may have been this time.
All right, so y'all are seeing these rates for the first time. Has it slowed down the phone calls?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the reason we're going to talk about it is because I'm going to give y'all some tools for your toolbox.
For overfinancing.
Mm-hmm. And so let me ask you this. Do you think an advertisement for a piece of property and you add seller financing available will make your phone ring more than it currently does?
Most definitely.
All right. Will those always be good phone calls? They will not always be good phone calls, but it will make your phone ring, right? So there's certain property types where this works much better. I started these trainings about a year ago, and one of my guys in Oklahoma is doing 2 or 3 closings a month on seller finance now. He's figured out how to do it, and it's adding 2 or 3 closings a month to his system.
It's mostly land transactions.
That's Keaton. That's Keaton.
Okay.
Yeah, so you met Keaton. So, so there's a lot of different aspects to seller finance. So there's, when I say private financing, who knows what I'm talking about?
You're talking about banks or an individual that's fine. Yeah, I've had somebody do that.
Okay. Well, so Andrew actually called a buddy of ours the other day in Caledonia, and he said, "Oh man," he said, "I just put $2 million in a CD. I can't do it right now." But he was willing, right? So you think about, so what is somebody going to do with the money, right? How many people are going to take the money, pay the gain or not pay the gain, depending on their situation, put it in the bank and get a CD? Right now, I think 5 1/4 is about where we are. How many people are going to do that?
Probably a lot, but are you talking about
A lot.
in relation to those that might do a 1031 or something like that?
No, these are sellers that y'all are dealing with, right? And so if you said, "Hey, look, Farm Credit's charging 9. My guy got a quote the other day for 9 or 8.5. Would y'all be willing to hang in this deal and do an owner finance for the next couple of years and get a 7 or a 7.5 and help me make my phone ring so I can help you sell your place? How many people think you might have a client that would do that? You see what I'm saying? All right. Does it help your phone ring? All right. And on the high-end properties, Jack, how many people need that?
They may not need all of it, but they may need some of it.
But how many of them would want it if they could get it, right?
If they get it, they'd take it.
They'd take it, right? So so most of you, a big bulk of what you're going to be doing in business is 100 to 300,000, and most of those are financed, right? And that's what's going on with Keaton. That's most of what he does. He does a lot of 100 to 200, and a lot of the stuff he's doing is rural residential. These, what we call out there Shetland pony farms. For the people outside of Tulsa, and you offer them a long-term amortization. Have all of y'all looked at an amortization schedule and seen what the actual effect of that is? If you do a 30-year AM, but you do like a 5-year call, how much principal reduction takes place in that first 5 years? Not much of nothing, right? It's the interest payments, right? So does your seller lose anything to do a 3 to 5 year call on a long-term AM to get better than a CD rate if that helps them turn loose of the property, right? So a lot of the properties like this one, a lot of the sellers are people that want to get away from the maintenance. Does that get them away from the maintenance? Yeah, gets the new owner in place, right? So the things you have to be careful for, I'm trying to answer this question for y'all. Y'all see what the question is. So sometimes it benefits the seller. Most always benefits the buyer or entices the buyer. It creates opportunity, right? Do y'all know anybody who's in the land business who's kind of waiting on it to bust a little more? Who's got a lot of cash? Any of y'all know anybody like that? Kind of waiting on it to bust down a little bit. They're like, I think it's going to go down, but it hadn't really gone down yet. But I think it's going to go down. Yeah. All right. They sitting on a lot of cash. Probably getting 5 1/4, right? Are they wanting to put it back in the stock market right now? No. No, most of them not, right? So that guy, you call that guy up and say, how'd you like to be in the land business like this right now? We do a 30-year AM, do a 3-year call, and you provide the seller financing on this deal over here. If it's a good LTV, if it's good loan to value, and the buyer's got a good down payment. I used to have somebody down in Hattiesburg that did these for me all the time. And we wound up buying some properties on real good LTVs. You do a 70% loan to value, get a buyer that does down payment. I've even had my guys do refinances. Like if you go see your farm credit guy and you say, I've got a private guy who will take one of your, some of your problem people off of your list. I did this in Tupelo a couple of months ago. Guess what I got? I got the name of a potential seller and a name of somebody that I could do refi. And this amount was low enough that my wife could have done the deal. And we would have done it, right? Because it would pay more than the CD that she put, But she's actually doing it in Dustin right now. She's not on the deed. She didn't own the property. Didn't need to sell it. But the LLC, and we got a little bit of a discount. She got a big bump over a CD. We kind of split the difference. And we just did a simple 5-year note, annual payments. Y'all know people that have cash that would a lot rather be in real estate than the stock market. And this is what banks do.
Mark,
right?
I have a friend
So,
who's very wealthy.
yeah.
And when I bought my Mossy Oak franchise, He financed it for me.
Right.
And then, I don't know if you know about this deal, if you've heard this yet, but Jason Miller, I was hoping he was gonna be here. He just did a deal that's 1.2 million or 1.4.
Mm-hmm.
And the buyer put down $500,000, and the seller is financing the rest at 4% for 5 years, I believe it is, 5
Yeah.
years. And it's land, house, everything, but, so that was a good one.
And that makes those deals work. Y'all see what I'm
You
saying?
got enough data, especially.
Yeah. Well, so he's taken a hit from a CD rate to get out of the maintenance. So instead of negotiating price, the guy probably just negotiated rate, right? And think about this, when you've got somebody that might sell, when they sell, you're going to get satisfied. So you get your principal back, right? But I typically will set them all up where there's a 2 to 5 year call. But if you're dealing with farmers, set them up with annual notes. I've done a whole bunch of them with annual notes that come after the crop's done. Like we do a closing in July. You don't have to set it up where the payment's in July. Set it up where the payment's in December. He's got his crop in. He's been selling his crop. You know, just do annual note. But I want y'all to start thinking about the different things that you can do to connect yourself to these folks that have the money, that are in this wait gap, waiting for the market to correct. Now, I'm not convinced it's going to, but if they're rich, they're smarter than me and you, right? And if they're convinced they need to wait, put them in some 2-year deals where they're attached to some real estate. Guy might not pay, you know. We're going to find out. So, y'all see this screen? Can y'all see the screen from where you're sitting? Who knows what the promissory note is? Go ahead.
Promise to repay the loan that you have taken.
Okay. And it's the piece of paper that describes the indebtedness.
Sets out the details.
It's the piece of paper that describes. So people say it like it's one word. Note and deed of trust. You ever heard, right? Note and deed of trust. It's like it's one word. Well, it's not one word. It's two things, right? So what's the deed of trust?
Held by the lending institution.
It's the security instrument. So the deed of trust is not what describes the indebtedness. It's what secures the indebtedness. So y'all just need to have a real basic familiarity with these documents. So do y'all know what a second or a junior mortgage is?
You know what a second is? I don't know about a junior.
Same thing.
Okay.
Same thing. What's a second?
It's when somebody else is in line second. Somebody else has got the first lien.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep. So what's the most secure position, the first or the second?
First.
Everybody knows that. The first position is the most secure position, right?
Get left out.
Right. The second guy can get left out, but the first guy could get left out some too. You understand? Because if y'all know what a short sale is.
You know, just tell us about that. I really
So a short sale is when it's selling for less than what's owed.
Okay.
Right? And let me tell you, that can happen. It's happened in your lifetime, I promise you.
See it with houses a lot.
It happens, right? When those markets correct, like right now, in a lot of those cities where you had this runaway inflation of price, like Boise, Idaho, has been losing as much as 5% a month in value from the boom they went up to.
Madison too.
Yeah, so a lot of these markets that went boom, 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 just went way up. Well, people were buying, right? So there's people that are way upside down in some of these homes right now, right? Now, it's not so much here because we didn't see that, right? We didn't experience that at the same level like in Grenada that they would have in Madison and some other markets, right? Robert and his wife made an offer in Starkville the other day. 20 other couples made an offer on the same house. So there's still some markets that are smoking hot. But those are the ones where you can see that some of these positions aren't great positions for the lenders. Who knows what a land contract is?
Yeah.
Contract for deed, Miss Beth?
Well, are you talking about just a regular land contract
Well,
that we write?
No. Contract for deed. It's. Who knows what contract for deed? This is a different piece of language.
I'm not sure what you're
Who
talking
knows what contract for deed is? It's generally considered predatory finance practice. I've only recommended it once to protect a client, so I've only personally done it once, but I see it a lot. Who knows what caveat emptor is? Buyer beware. Do we live in a buyer beware state? Well, I'm going to tell you, I thought we were in the most buyer beware state in America, but after being in Oklahoma for about 4.5 years, we are not the most buyer beware state.
There's a lot of weird stuff out there, isn't it?
It is some real predatory practices that take place out there. A lot of they call them land contracts or contract for deed, but a contract for deed is basically a contract that spells out the indebtedness, like the note and deed of trust is really actually condensed into a contract, right? And the contract says, you're going to pay me $100 a month for the next 30 years, but it's a contract that leads to a deed. They don't get a deed until they fulfill the contract.
So that's like an owner finance type.
So it's almost like the closing is going to take place in 30 years after you've met all the terms of the contract. Y'all with me? All right.
Is that, are you talking about like,
They you don't have to foreclose these people. Are y'all with me?
so it's not like an owner finance?
It is an owner finance. It's an owner finance without you giving the guy a deed,
Oh, okay.
is what it is.
So you still, so the seller still holds the deed?
Seller still got the deed. So guess what happens to the process of foreclosing?
There isn't one.
There ain't one.
There's no process.
Yeah, you're done. All right. Well, so, it can turn into David and Goliath kind of a deal, right? But I don't do. Yeah, it's a really great position for the seller, right? But I want y'all to be aware of how these things work, because let's say you do get into a situation where you're trying to use seller finance, and then you have this real cruddy buyer show up, and you're scared to death. But it's the only phone call you got in the last 13 months, right? And this guy is ready to go. So how do you protect him? And if you don't know the answer, where are you going to get the answer? Right? So, yeah. Well, so you see how this contract for deed can have an application, right? So the other time that I've done this, there was an ankle bracelet wearing person that wanted to buy a house from somebody I cared about. And I'm like, whoa. Stop. So we did a contract for deed, right? And it worked out. The guy, was reformed, and he paid his bills, and worked out. But
And I'm assuming, Mark, that you have a rock solid attorney who you have a great relationship with, who draws these up on your behalf, because you're not drafting these contracts for deed and some of these other.
right, I've got a slide for that here in just a minute. Right. No, you're on the right track. So I would never prepare these. So where is the liability when you're headed towards a closing and you're preparing listing agreements and contracts? Who's got the liability?
Mostly you.
That's right. Yeah, does your buyer and your seller got E&O insurance? No, but you do. So if you're trying to reduce liability, back away from paperwork. For y'all that have been in my classes before, what's your E&O limit? Who's got $1 million in E&O?
I do.
Yeah, that's right.
Always have.
Smart folks, yeah. All right, so how many of y'all done a deal over $1 million over your limit? I don't know if y'all realize this, but you're entering into a stage of liability. All right, so if you're trying to get away from that liability, like if you're in a multi-million-dollar situation, does your seller have an attorney? Yes, is the answer. Does your buyer have an attorney if it's a multi-million-dollar deal? The answer is yes. Guess who does not prepare those contracts? Mark does not prepare those contracts. Mark oversees those contracts. Mark advises his client. But guess how much liability reduction I just got?
When you say
A lot.
compare those contracts, you're talking about the financial terms.
No. No, I'm talking about the contract.
Purchase.
Yeah. Yeah, we've gone back. Like, I'm rolling that back and just letting you know I'm never preparing any of these documents.
Do you ever write your own, purchase contracts?
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Off then, Mark, if you're not doing it on that $2 million transaction, where is the threshold where Mark says, I'm stepping away? Is that at your limit?
Okay. Who thinks that my idiot radar is pretty good after 33 years?
It's pretty good.
My idiot radar is strong.
That's when you get an attorney.
Now, hang on, is that idiot or this idiot? Which
Yeah. All right, look, if there's one in the mix,
right?
Mark is backing out the mix. Right? Because liability can come from both directions, no matter who you represent. Understand?
Sure.
All right. So that's the way I do it. If I'm in, if I'm doing business with people that I've done business with forever, who I love, and I know they love me, I'll write anything.
Okay.
Right?
It's when you
But
get those screwballs that you get an attorney.
yeah. And I can tell you a lot of times when it's a lot of money, there's not, everybody in there ain't somebody I love. So, anyway, y'all see this screen? That's pretty funny, ain't it? Anybody got sellers that kind of feel like this right now? Yep. Do you think if you go to some of those sellers and say, hey, been kind of learning about this, here's kind of what I think this looks like, would y'all be interested in participating in something like this under these terms? And you describe some terms that you think might work for them, that might help you find a buyer, because they've hired you because you're a problem solver and you're a marketer. You're going to solve the problems, you're going to take some of the liability, you're going to do the work, and you're a problem solver. Right? That's why they're not doing it, because they think you know. All right? So, if this is what your seller's feeling like, you might want to talk through some of this, right? And there's a lot of places. So right now, I'm thinking about selling my place at Mayhew. Been cleaning it up, working on it. I owe about 130. Probably worth, I don't know, the house and a couple acres, $650. How much down payment do you think I'd have to have?
North of 130, significantly.
Couple, about a third of it, maybe.
200-ish.
If somebody came in with 15%, which would be 90, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
The only thing that scares me about that, Mark, with a house is what if they go in there and tear it up, mess it up, and then you got to evict them and come in and replace the carpet.
I got 90.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I got 90 grand.
All right.
They got insurance. I'm going to be checking just like the bank would check to make sure that insurance is up to date.
Okay.
Right. But they're qualified for a $650,000 place.
Yeah.
That's some security.
Yeah.
They had 90 grand laying around in the bank. usually are crazy people got 90 grand laying in the bank,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes, right? Yeah, they're out there. But I might even do less. I might do 10%, depending on who it is, shows up, right? Do y'all think I can come up with the other money to pay off the first?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to make a deal. Let's say you bring me the deal, and I'm paying you 30 grand in commission. And you come up with this great buyer, and he's going to give me 60 grand down. I owe 130, and I owe you, what, 30? You think I'd do that deal?
You probably would.
Yeah, I'd do that deal. I'd probably do a 2 or 3 year call, probably give the guy a 7% note, give him a 20 or 30 year amortization, and in 2 or 3 years, I'm out. Right? I'd do that. Y'all think you got a lot of people you're working for to do something just like that? Okay. Well, there's an answer. This is the one you just asked about? It could be any one of you. It could be any one of you. Okay. Yeah. Well, so pretty much any closing office is going to have standard form note and deed of trust. Let's have this conversation. So, how many of y'all have closing attorneys that maybe sometimes don't fully read the contract?
Yeah. Those.
Anybody else ever run into anybody that didn't read the contract?
Attention to expiration.
All of them don't read the contract, right?
Don't pay attention to the deadline to expire.
It's so crazy, right? So I actually did legal CE one time. I did 2 hours of legal CE, and what I talked about is you guys need to read the contract. That's basically what we talked about, right? But so do you review the settlement statement before you close them for your client?
Heck yeah.
Yeah. What's the main thing you look at, right? The commission? Is that right?
Sales price, commission.
You're making sure it's right. That's right. You're making sure it's right.
They're not paying for something they're not supposed to.
How often does a lawyer have the HUD statement wrong? Most of the time. That is the exact right answer. All right. So do you think they'll mess up the note and deed of trust? Telling you is read the darn thing, because you know what the agreement was that you and your client made. It's in the contract. You wrote the terms of the note and deed. The note. You wrote the terms in the contract to do the deal. Read the darn thing, right? Because they'll have it messed up. Just read it. So. Yeah. So y'all tell me what you think. Why would your seller consider this as an option? Why would your seller right now consider seller financing? We talked about it. Why would they?
What's a faster way to sell your property?
There's one.
He may be in a pinch too.
What's that?
He may be in a pinch too, financially.
Mm-hmm.
Might get a little bit more.
More income.
More income. That's a good one.
Get more for it.
Been on the market for a while. And just
Tax
had a lot of
purposes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And some people don't like to take all their money at one time. But then there are some people who want all their money at one time so they can buy something else. So then, what do you do?
Is this potentially an increase of net revenue?
Yes, making money on their money, so to speak.
Right. So, has anybody been able to think of anybody while I've been sitting here?
I got a text right here, a seller that I just talked about this to last week, saying that this is their terms. Not sure how my partner feels, but I'd consider 25% down, 7% interest, 15-year and a 5-year balloon.
Mhm.
This product.
Yep.
It's been on the market 2 years.
Yep.
Luckily, it's a family member of mine, so they're patient with me.
Yep.
But it's also a swamp.
Yep.
It's a swamp, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And look, I will tell y'all, as markets cool off, what's going to cool off the most is the dogs. So if you fooling with some dogs, they cold.
You talking about dogs as far as crappy properties?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Y'all ever walked on a property? I've told people this before. I have said, like I went out and looked at their properties and, be a big list of timberland properties or something. Come back and it's, well, this one's worth this and this one's worth this. And then we get to this one and they say, what about this one? How long y'all been paying taxes on this? Because that's how backwards you are. I'd quit.
I couldn't find nothing good about it.
Oh, man, alive. I could tell y'all some story about Jackson County, Mississippi, and you'd never want to drive down there. Jackson County, Mississippi.
That's your county, Tom.
Used to be.
Okay.
Yeah,
They're from the coast.
whew, man, there's some swamps in there. And I used to walk in there. I don't know more. I just look at the map and go, yeah, good luck. No. So, credit check for the buyer. Credit check.
Who does that?
Anybody. You could probably get your Federal Land Bank guy to go do it for you.
Okay.
I mean, they're easy to go get. You can probably get them online, right? But do you need one? Would you all the time need one?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it depends on how much you're putting down. I don't know.
And look, 500,000. Somebody said something about $500,000 down. You know who don't need one? Mark don't need one. $500,000 down on $1.2 million. I don't need a credit check. I don't care if they lose it. Never make a payment. I don't care what happens after I get $500,000 down on $1.2 million.
I'm not trying to be cheesy, but that's one thing you have to talk to the seller about. If they got 25% down, you get that. If they don't pay their note for 2 months, you can foreclose on it, and then you got it back, and you
Sell it
resell it,
again.
and you made money.
Right.
So the risk, yeah, it's a risk, but there's also a reward to it if you got a
Reward is much
It-
greater than
And let me tell you, I foreclosed an attorney in his home county, in Kemper County. Now, he knew a couple tricks, and it took us a couple extra months, but it can be done, right? It still works. Yeah.
So in that scenario,
Mm-hmm.
from, I'm always, when I go into a transaction, I'm looking at, just like you know, where's the idiot factor, where's the risk, how bad is it gonna be when I wanna picture myself sitting before this panel saying, Mr. Rudolph, why would you not run a D&B on these folks or a credit bureau or something? I mean, you're buyer beware, right? So you're representing somebody, you're making good money off this thing. Would a conscientious real estate professional not run, if it goes sideways? So is there risk?
Liability on
Me? Is my E&O going to say, ooh, man, you're an idiot. Why would you not do this?
So the risk is something you need to recognize, advise your client about. So if instead of $500,000 down on $1.2 million, it was $1,500. Let's say my seller is so ready to go, he wants to take $1,500. I'm gonna be like, well, let's at least check the credit on this guy. Let's check this guy out. Frontwards and backwards. But if the guy shows up with $500,000, I promise you, I don't care what happens. But now, so see the next one. What could the buyer do to my security, right? So think about this. My buyer is the crookedest logger in Mississippi.
Oh boy, it's saying a lot.
My buyer's the crookedest logger in Mississippi, and I know this. All right, so I'm representing the seller. My buyer shows up. Seller financing. Yeah, I'm all in. Oh, how much down payment? All right, he's the crookedest logger ever. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So what could the buyer do to my security? Is that going to affect, who this is and what the product is that we're selling? Is that going to affect how we think about this process? Should it?
Well,
The answer is yes.
Are you
Okay, Miss Beth. I say you're used to people doing what they're supposed to do. Do people not do what they're supposed to do and what they sign papers that they would do? That answer's yes. So if it's out there to do, assume that it can be done and it will be done. I had a bank down in central Mississippi years ago call me up. Mark, would you mind? I'm a little bit worried about this guy we loaning money on, and he's got about 14 properties, and could you mind going looking at those and tell us where we are? About the third track with no trees on it. Do you know about this?
You would know if I called his name. The banker came from Alabama. I had to take him on my four-wheeler on 720 acres to show him the timber that wasn't there.
Oh, yeah.
And he never said a word. He played it so cool. He never talked about the guy or nothing. But, yeah, timber was gone.
Yeah. So, when you look at, y'all were asking, well, what if they trash the house? So if the house is 80% of the deal, and you're worried about it, there's some things you can do to protect that, right? But, think about, okay, we're going to sell the house and we're going to sell all the furnishings. How often does that happen when it's a camp? A lot. How much are some of the furnishings? Sometimes a lot. Right? So make sure you think through these things, right? But you want to recognize what the problems are or what the potential problems are and advise your client according to those things, right? Should I ask for additional security? Okay. So a farmer's wanting to buy a farm. Farm joins him. Farming ain't been going great. Your farmer is willing to do a seller finance because he wants to make that extra money, because he was just going to put it in the CDs, and when you told him about it, he's like, man, I'd love to make an extra 2%, 3%. Right? Well, so the neighbor comes up, he ain't got no money, but he owns land. Do you think your seller would sell his neighbor the farm with additional security and basically no down payment? Because it's a farm. It's a row crop farm. What's going to happen to it? Is the guy going to depreciate that farm? Not probably. I mean, they can farm the fertilizer out of them. You've seen them farm the dirt out of them. Farm the good out. But that's usually a couple $100 to $300 an acre. And we're usually talking now about $5,000, $6,000 an acre on that farm. You see what I'm saying? But so should I ask for additional security? Sometimes. Typically that's available, right? For some of these buyers, depending on what kind of property you're fooling with. Timber properties. Do you think you could do a deal with a timber guy? Like, let's say Captain Crook is coming to buy you timber, but does Captain Crook own a bunch of land? Probably, right? Can you put your seller in a security position that no matter what Captain Crook does, that your seller's in a good spot? You can. Better than he was before if you're smart, right? Okay. What I would say on that next one, what does this look like if the buyer doesn't perform? So who heard about the forbearance stuff that was going on in some of these places in America during COVID, where you didn't have to pay your bills?
Oh, yeah.
Landlords were getting messed over.
You couldn't evict people.
Right.
Yep.
Is that likely to happen in rural Mississippi, where you do business?
Possible.
It's not likely anytime short term, right? And if you're doing 3 to 5 year balloons, probably going to be okay. But Have we seen that be an issue before? Yeah. I'm just telling you to be aware that not, just like she indicated, just because somebody signed something, somebody made this obligation, they made this commitment, do people own student loans that don't want to pay them back? Think you ought to pay them? You ever heard of that?
Yep.
I've heard of that. Right? Is that the way a lot of people think? Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit. What if the seller has his own debt? Does that mean that seller financing is not possible? It does not mean that. I just described a scenario for myself so that you all would understand that it doesn't mean that.
They could refinance, or they owe $1 million and they get 500 down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's some workarounds, right? So just because somebody said, if you're talking to somebody that got $1 million place, and they say, well, I still owe 150 on this, I got to pay it off. Does that sound hard? If that sounds hard, you ain't thinking, right? You can make that work. So let's look at the buyer side. Anybody ever run into a guy who was just a great hard-working guy who had a consistent income, who had terrible credit because of a divorce, or one of the kids got cancer, or something out, just completely out? It's not a reflection of this guy's character. Anybody ever seen that happen?
Yes.
You know what? That dude can't get that loan. And do y'all think that there's some of those guys out there that could buy a place that you've got for sale? He can't get the loan at the bank. He can't buy it if you don't say seller financing available, can he? Those guys are out there, right? People out there trying to rebuild. They exist, right? Same kind of things with reduced down payment. Does the fact that the guy doesn't have $100,000 or $200,000 mean that he's a bad guy and he wants $1 million place? Could have just, I don't know about y'all, but I know a lot of people that it starts getting to be December and they start running their taxes. What do? I'm a contractor. That Traco's $250. My banker just told me that I've got $350 in the bank. I'm gonna buy that Traco and I'm gonna buy that skid steer. Well, December 31st, is he dead broke? He's dead broke. But does that mean you shouldn't help him buy a place that your seller wants to sell? Can y'all figure this out? Has he got additional security? He's got a brand new Traco and a brand new skid steer. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You can figure this out. And there's opportunities for y'all to do this. All right. One of the things, like if I'm selling, y'all see this by reduced fees and loan cost. If I'm selling, do I every time need a credit check run? Do I need an appraisal to do a finance for somebody? Does the buyer need an appraisal if he's financing from me?
Not necessarily, no, not ever.
No.
Not unless he demands one.
Yeah.
Then he probably
Yeah.
not.
Can I charge some fees and finance them back in, or charge them on the down payment? I could. Just complicates things, right? But how much cheaper is this deal on fees and cost
Lots cheaper.
on everybody?
Yeah.
Y'all got that? So, y'all see my little cat? How long you been working? 10 years. You got lots of money? I've been working 33. I'm the cat on the right. I spend it, right? So, these are the things you're going to have to answer for the buyer, right? So we've been talking about balloons. When the balloons do, then what? Is that a buyer? Is that what the buyer's going to know?
Gotta redo something.
Well, so technically, what's the answer? Who knows the answer technically?
Pay me off.
Yeah, technically, the answer is you.
Pay the rest of the loan off.
Right.
Yeah, you know, technically, what it means, what a balloon means, is you owe the rest of the money on that day.
Are you gonna have to redo something?
Yeah, you're gonna have to figure something else, or you're gonna have to make a new deal with me. Well, let me ask y'all this. I wanted to do the 7% to get a buyer in here. My buyer still can't go to the bank.
After 5 years.
After 3 years or 5 years, he still can't go to the bank, and he still wants that place. Well, I kind of wanted my money. But if he offers me 10%, might I stay?
You might.
I might. But can you really answer this question about what the seller's going to do 3 years from now or 5 years from now? You can't answer that question. All you can answer is technically what's going to happen. Is the amounts due? And I can actually go ahead and do the math for you right now until your payments are this much and you're going to owe this much. Can I? Should I? Answer's yes, right? You know, I talked about the appraisal a second ago. Let me ask you this. If you've got a piece of property, let's say it's rural residential in a pretty hot area that's coming up in value, have you ever seen it where the appraisal didn't come up to what you could sell it for?
Yeah.
So when is sometimes owner financing a good strategy for just capturing more money
Yeah.
on a transaction? Have y'all ever thought about that?
Definitely.
Because do you have to do an appraisal? No. You and the seller know what's going on. You wouldn't even be selling him.
Buyer may be willing to pay more money knowing
That's
it's coming.
They usually are willing to pay. In those markets,
And
Right.
sometimes the sellers know it's not gonna appraise for what they got it contracted for.
Right.
that's right.
I know a guy that did that, cause he knew, he didn't,
He knew it wasn't going to praise.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, don't even worry about an appraisal.
Yeah. I got this. I got this. Right? Y'all see, so start thinking through some of these things, right? Prepayment penalties. Have y'all ever seen, do y'all know about prepayment penalties? All right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So, like some of the big insurance companies that do these really low loans to these really rich farmers will have prepayment penalties because they're having to compete. They're not charging the fees, and they're like, well, if the dude comes and pays us off, we basically gave him money and we didn't make any money, right? You know, so that usually that's what a prepayment penalty will be situated there. But will most of your sellers be mad about prepayment? And just think about, like if you're doing rural residential out from Madison, you got 50 acres out at Flora or somewhere that's booming, and they're going to build a big old house out there, and you do a 3 or 5 year deal. Are they going to pay you off early? Probably. Is anybody going to be mad about that? Nobody going to be mad about that. You don't need a prepayment penalty.
I can say from experience, I had 2 commercial properties in Alabama before we moved, and then we moved, and I still had them. So I worked out a deal with the joint physicians, did a 15-year fixed note, charging 20% down, no balloon, just said, you're going to carry insurance, you're going to carry liability insurance as well, if anybody gets hurt. I got the call 3 months ago, we're 4 years into the deal, hey, I'm ready to pay you off. I was like, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did a lease purchase on the other one and agreed to the selling price beforehand 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that doctor said, hey, I think I'm ready to pay. And I told her I'd give her $1,000 a month credit at closing. So I gave
Yeah.
him $36,000 a month, credit,
Mm-hmm.
ended up with $215,000 in the bank, I owed $150,000.
So did y'all just learn something? What did we learn? We learned if we need to borrow money, we're borrowing it from Jack here in just any day now. Yeah, we've been to be borrowing money from Jack.
Also use that money to pay off on a house that we had to sell for $300,000 less, and we still have a mortgage on it.
Oh yeah, get the violins out. Let's play the violin. Oh, yeah.
Because I've lived it.
Yeah.
You can make money, but you better structure it right. But
So there's this other side. So there's the buyer and the seller side of aggressive interest. All right. So have y'all ever seen these little country developments out there where a guy took 80 acres and busted it up into a bunch of 10 acres and it wound up, folks that probably really couldn't afford to be where they are, probably didn't have the credit. They just wanted what they wanted when they wanted it. There's a whole practice in this business, in the real estate business, that uses aggressive interest. They basically most of them will group those notes when they get a payment history on them and resell those notes. Just discount the notes and move on. But there is a market for selling the notes. So if you get a note at 12% and you get a good 2-year payment history from somebody will buy that note. Because if you discounted it back to 10%, how many people do you know that would like to get 10% for their cash? I bet you. Yeah, Jack's got the money. Jack will do that. He got that. He'll do that. So, how many of y'all seen this kind of stuff? This is real. Cabin in 50 acres, $1,500 down. InstantAcres.com. I just alluded to this just a second ago. Who is familiar with the idea of delayed or versus instant gratification? If you're raising kids, it'd be good to be familiar with this concept. All right? Delayed gratification, that's the guy that thinks it through, can wait. No, I'll wait till I make a little more money. I'll wait till that's the person that's more prudent. What percentage of the population that has a job wants whatever it is they want right now?
It's a big percentage.
It's a bunch. All right. Does this kind of thing work? Because that guy ain't got, he's lucky, he'll have 1,500 Friday, maybe for 30 minutes. We're going to close Friday every time with this guy, right? Because Friday is the last day he's got $1,500. Come Sunday, he ain't got $1,500, right? So, from the seller side, think about this. Cabin in 50 acres in the mountains. Why would a seller do this?
he's going to keep reselling it probably 4 or 5 more times.
That's one reason. Sure is. Y'all ever seen the tote the note car business? Do y'all know how they make the money in the tote the note car business? They just keep selling that thing. Down payment and then a few payments and then they're gone. Down payment, few payments, and they're gone. Down payment, few payments, and they're gone. All right. What would be another reason a seller would do this?
High interest, can charge more interest.
Mm-hmm. Has anybody in here ever had 50 acres in a cabin on Crackhead Road? Methamphetamine Lane. Have y'all ever had yeah. All right. So the rich guy who's got the cash money to buy a cabin in 50 acres in the woods, is he buying this for any price on Meth Head Lane? Not unless he's a CPA, right? He's not buying it for any price. He's not buying those problems. But is there somebody? And is that somebody a rich somebody? No. The answer is no. If it's on Meth Head Lane, a rich somebody ain't doing it. So how do you solve this problem for your seller?
Sell it to somebody who can't get it any other way.
Right like that. So, and y'all know you're in a partnership with the person that you're selling for. And when you go, so I had a lady in Oklahoma not a year or two ago. And landlocked in Oklahoma is landlocked. Y'all understand that? Like, landlocked ain't, we got a solution and we'll go through the court and we're going to fix it. You're not going to get it.
Can't do that
Landlocked's landlocked,
at all.
right?
No reason.
Landlocked's landlocked, right?
No recourse, you can't.
No, you're messed over.
You can't go to court.
You know, it's landlocked is landlocked. And there's several other western states where landlocked is landlocked, right? There is no solution. All right. So this lady calls me. I'm looking at that thing. I'm like, ooh. And she was just so stinking sweet. This lady was so sweet. She was a sweet. And look, this thing's, we're talking like a $20,000 deal. $20,000. And she just kept on being sweet. And I said, okay, I'm gonna fix this for her, right? So once in a while, y'all will see a problem. Y'all got a cabin and 50 acres. You got a seller, and they're real sweet. And they didn't, when they bought it, it wasn't Meth Head Lane, and now it is. And they're just the nicest folks, and you want to fix it. Well, is anybody showing up with the cash? No, they're not. This is it. This is the way you get them out. So sometimes it's just the only way. There are certain property types that this is the only way, right? This is it. And if you want, all right, this is, so y'all, we were talking about the scenario where I was going to have to come up with money at the closing. At my closing, I got to come up with money. So when you're presenting an offer to your seller, and it's a painful one, it's painful. Y'all ever presented a painful offer to your seller and you kind of knew you really need to do this, right? You really need to do this, right? Not everybody's like this, but is it possible, maybe, that you would run into somebody who would think, well, if I'm not getting any money, you shouldn't either?
Yeah.
Yeah, you run into that person, I run into them too. Well, should you finance your commission?
I've never heard of that.
I've never done it, right? That's a decision for them to make. It's a decision for you to make. But most cases, you can get paid. You've fulfilled the obligations of your contract. Look, if you sell 50 acres and a cabin on Meth Head Lane for $1,500 down, is there money to pay you? The answer is no. But have you just solved this problem, and will they pay you? Yeah, look, you need to get that stuff clear up front, right? Look, if I see this as a problem, this is a problem property. We're going to have to do something like this to sell it. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do this. Let me ask y'all this. When you're selling 50 acres and a cabin on Meth Head Lane, how many times do you have to show that thing before it's sold under contract? 100? Right? So what would you charge to do this?
10.
Not less. Not less.
Maybe a flat rate.
I'm just telling you. I'm telling y'all. If it's a problem property, it's a problem property. And you are going to be going and going and going. I had a lady had a really nice place down the road from my office, like 3 miles from my house. I live above the office, as y'all know. 140 acres, great subdivided property, 10, 20 acre parcels bringing 5, 6, 7, 8 grand an acre. We could have sold them like that. But it involved me giving up every Saturday of my life for a year and a half, 2 years. So she says, well, how much are you going to charge? And I told her, oh my gosh, I can get so-and-so to do it for, 5, 6%, whatever. I'm like, you got their number? Because I'm just not doing that.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a deal and you regretted what you charged?
Yeah.
Yeah. But not all of it. It kind of balances out. Sometimes you go, wow, I can't believe this went so well. Right? So sometimes it goes great. But I'm just telling y'all, when you're looking at some of these options, you need to think through what it is you're agreeing to. Right? So I'm offering you some seller answers for some real serious seller problems. But remember, if it's some serious seller problems, he's making them yours to get this deal done. Isn't he?
Could you structure it once you closed on it, like up front agree with the seller that, all right, my commission's 7%. All right, that monthly note from that buyer is going to go to an attorney who drew up the contract and amortization schedule and everything else. And then they're going to pay my 7% out of that every month that you get paid.
You could agree to anything you want to agree to, but I'm just telling you, Debbie Cooper will lose her mind if you do that. Right? What I would tell you is that you've solved the problem, you've done your job, they'll find the money. That's what I would do. And I'd be done with it.
We've got the sandwiches here to eat about 11:30. Do you want to eat and then come back to this?
Well,
How you like being through.
so the marketing, this is almost done.
That's
All right.
okay. I was just giving you a little heads up.
$9.99 pizza plus a $2 delivery charge. Frowny face. $12 pizza, no delivery. Does that work? The people do this stuff. Owner finance marketing. There you go. Done. Right? So if y'all have questions about how any of this works, feel free to call. I'm glad to come and visit with some of your clients, tell them how it works. If you have some private investors, I'm glad to show them how it works.
Okay.
Right?
Mark, could I mention one thing before we start lunch? And this is for my agents, everybody, whatever. We've had this happen twice. I just had it happen to me. Ricky just had it happen to him too. And it's a certain group of agents where this has happened. And he just told me about his yesterday. It happened to me about a month ago. When you're working with other agents, especially of a certain kind of agents, you need to start asking them, do they have a buyer rep agreement in place with their buyer? When it's from another company, they're trying to buy something you've got. I got stung. And luckily, they didn't get the property. Griffin just had it happen too. These agents have got a buyer's rep agreement. This one agent called about this tract of land we had, small little tract, and she had a buyer. Well, she wanted to know how much, and it was a little bitty thing. I had 10% because it was like $20,000. So she wants to know what the commission is. I said, I'll split it with you. We'll split it. I'll give you the commission. So, well, go ahead and send me the compensation agreement, and then I'll send you the contract. I said, fine. So I sent her the compensation agreement saying we'd split it 50-50. Then she sends me the contract offering $12,000 on this property, and she's getting 28% from a buyer. Her buyer's paying her $3,500 on a $12,000 purchase. She's got it.
She get 33% commission.
Yeah, she's getting that from her buyer and getting half of my little bitty commission. I'm gonna get $650. So when she sent it to me, I said, is this saying that your buyer's paying you this? Yes, that's right. I said, well, I wish I'd known because you wouldn't have got any of mine. So Griffin had it happen too. So, if I'd have known that she was getting that kind of money, or any money from her buyer especially, I wouldn't have agreed to giving her half of our commission.
Was that money in addition to what the $12,000? So $12,000 plus $30,000?
She was getting both. She was getting half of my commission plus getting $3,500